Hi, my name's Kate Summers and I completed my PhD in CASE. I'm now a fellow in the methodology department here at LSE and I'm going to give a summary of my PhD project, which has also been written up as a short case brief that gives a summary of the project. So a short summary of the research. For my PhD research, I conducted in-depth qualitative interviews with working age benefit recipients who were living in East London. So these were people who were either unemployed or on a low income and receiving some sort of social security benefit from the state. And I was interested in conducting these interviews to get an in-depth understanding of how this money existed in people's lives and how they understood and how they used this money. So I thought it was important and timely to get an in-depth understanding of people's own experiences of receiving and using working age benefits for two main reasons. So one is the policy context that we're in at the moment. So on the one hand, there's about to be, or kind of we're going through a big shift with universal credit being introduced as the main working age benefit. And so I was interested in capturing the kind of what is now called legacy benefits, so the different kind of set of benefits that are now being replaced by universal credit. I wanted to see how these benefits that are being replaced existed in people's lives. Also, in terms of policy shift, there's some sort of more gradual ongoing shifts that are happening that I was interested in seeing how these played out from people's own perspectives. Specifically, this included increasing conditionality, so what people have to do in return for receiving their benefits, often things like work search or preparing for work, and also the policy shift of increasing basically cuts being introduced and being embedded into the working age benefit system. The other reason that I thought this was particularly important as a topic to investigate is that my understanding is that working age benefits and how people use them from the perspective of some policymakers often takes a very economistic perspective. So people work under the assumption that when people are using money, they're sort of acting like rational calculators. So all that matters is how much money you have, and then you just divide up that money and kind of make the most rational choice. But I was working from the understanding that actually also we should pay attention to social aspects when people are using their money, social meanings and factors. And I thought that you could get at this by interviewing people and asking them to talk through in detail how this money existed in their day-to-day lives. So then in terms of the main findings of the research, when I interviewed people, I asked them to talk through the process of receiving, organising and spending their benefit money. And the idea by asking people to describe their process, you do get at this, how it exists in the detail of their lives. And the findings then you can map onto how people talked about and understood receiving, organising and spending their money. So in terms of receiving benefit money, one of the main things that came out of the interview was understanding the nature of the transaction from the perspective of the claimant. So kind of in an official administrative sense, there's things that you have to do in order to receive your benefit. So you have to fill out certain forms and then you have to do certain things. So most obviously things like report changes in circumstances or prepare for work. And that's what the claimant has to do to receive this money. But then when I actually interviewed people about why they were receiving their benefit, there was also sort of a set of informal reasons that people saw themselves as fulfilling, and that this is what they were doing in return for the money that they received. And then they're actually that these understandings are quite different from the official administrative understandings. So that included things like people talking about their previous work histories and their desire to work in the future, and that sort of willingness to work being actually a really important part of what sort of legitimised their claim that they were making for this social security money. People also tended to talk about, people that had children, talked about their role as a parent and fulfilling that role as being something that meant they were sort of contributing to wider society, and that also made them sort of legitimate recipients of social security benefits. So then in fact what I found was that people were drawing on much broader ideas of what they were sort of contributing and putting in from kind of what a purely administrative official definition of contribution would be. One of the implications of this then is that academics and policymakers often understand stigma in terms of benefits as being an unreciprocated, an issue of there not being reciprocation. So people feel stigma when they receive benefits because they don't feel like they're giving anything back. But actually in my research I'm saying I don't think that's actually quite right, that people do feel like they're contributing in various ways through having a strong work ethic, through fulfilling their role as a parent. But then the problem and kind of the root of the stigma is that they feel that the official system doesn't recognise that. And that's the sort of disjuncture or mismatch that's the problem. In the second area, in terms of organising money, I find that when people were talking about how they used their social security money, what was really central was so temporality, so the timing of when money was used and how it was organised. So I use this term that some other scholars called Daly and Kelly use, money rhythms, to describe that it was really crucial when benefit payments were arriving and how that was then really central for how people structured their day-to-day and week-to-week lives in terms of how money was spent and how it came into and went out of the household. And this is a little bit different, or adds a new perspective onto some of the current existing research that focuses on the label of payments being sort of the central thing that people think might influence how money is divided up and spent. So there's existing research that tries to work out, does it matter that we label something child benefit, for example? Well, that will be spent on children. And I think that body of research is important, but I think from these interviews it supplements it with the idea of also the timings of payments were so crucial to how money was organised and spent, so it's not just labels. Then the final area, in terms of spending money, the central finding coming out there in the interviews was that participants drew a distinction between needs and wants, and that your benefit money, so money in the form of social security, was for spending on needs. So not on what you wanted, which kind of people also used words like treats or luxuries, but on what you needed. And people used other words like basics or necessities. So this idea that your social security money is only for really sort of constrained spending on a specific set of essential things. People did talk about spending on wants, but that this was something that happened in the past when their income circumstances were different, or might happen again in the future, again when their circumstances changed.